By controlling the supply chains, large food corporations rule the economic roost, so they set the economic rules. As the dominant buyers, they put pressure on farmers and other producers in the vertically integrated supply chain, compelling them to produce greater quantities of cheap food the corporations want grown. By specializing and controlling the entire process, including the necessary raw materials, such as seeds or young animals, these corporations minimize both risk and expense while establishing uniformity among their products. The individual farmers have to provide the land, facilities, time, and labor needed to produce foodstuffs, while the raw materials remain the same. In fact, the average farmer today earns only 14 cents on every dollar spent on food in the United States, compared to 36 cents in 1974. With so many calories on the market, the critical issue these companies face is the fact that as humans we can only eat so much in one day. The stomach has a fixed ceiling. How do the companies solve this essentially biological problem? Make portion sizes larger, offer irresistibly cheap deals, tempt you with candy impulse buys at the checkout counter, and create foods that leave the consumer with enough room and the desire for more. The list of techniques is long, frightening, and subtle. At the same time, access to healthier foods such as fresh fruit and vegetables is limited by price manipulations generated by government subsidization of foods like corn, soy, and wheat. For the millions of Americans on food stamps, for example, the few dollars a day they have to spend makes it almost impossible for them to choose to eat healthfully. Since the government supports the production of unhealthy processed foods, they are cheaper and more readily available. The U.S. government's artificial support of processed foods makes it impossible for people of low or no income to afford a balanced diet, because a bag of apples is more expensive than sugary breakfast cereal. Only desserts in food deserts? Assuming, that is, that these individuals even have access to a bag of apples. Millions of Americans, and particularly people in inner-city neighborhoods, live in food deserts, areas where local stores within a 5-mile radius do not even carry fresh fruit and vegetables. In fact, one recent study has shown that grocery stores are 4 times more likely to be built in predominantly Caucasian neighborhoods than African American communities, while African Americans are 30% more likely to die from diet-related heart disease. How empowering is the modern supermarket, convenience store, or restaurant to these individuals when the choices are limited to unhealthy, refined, sugary foods that can lead to obesity, chronic illness, and an early death? How empowering indeed is the modern food establishment for any of us, when the government's policies intentionally make healthy, real foods more expensive by subsidizing the mad? What ultimately is the point of having a food system that does not do what food should do? Nourish us. The door that keeps revolving. Unfortunately, government officials are as likely to have a relationship with the food industry as they are to police it. Not only do these corporations put pressure on the U.S. government through their lobbying power, but there is also a revolving door between government and industry. Many government officials leave their bureaucratic positions to work for major food corporations, while an equal number have left the corporate world to enter the realm of government. Former Secretary of Agriculture Ann Veneman, for instance, hired a lobbyist for the meat industry as her chief of staff. On the other hand, Veneman's predecessor left his position as Secretary of Agriculture to work for the food industry, which often has far better pay. These individuals certainly have the knowledge and experience often required to work as a regulator or a corporate employee. Nevertheless, there is always the risk of conflict of interest. How can we be sure they will act in the interest of public health rather than their former colleagues, if there is a conflict between the two? Even if there is no such relationship in place, the food industry can still influence the U.S. government in favor of its own interests.